Sometimes the most painful battles are not fought with swords, but with whispered lies spoken in dark corners by people you once trusted. There comes a moment in every life when your name is carried by tongues that do not deserve to speak it. They twist it, stain it, and bend it for their own comfort, their own insecurity, their own hidden hunger for control. And while you stand there wondering what you ever did to earn such cruelty, life quietly prepares its own answer, an answer that never misses its target. It is a strange thing when someone lies about you. Not only do they attack your character, they insult the God who shaped your heart. They believe their words can erase your truth, that their stories can outshine your integrity, that their performance can replace the substance of your soul. What they forget is that lies are fragile things. They travel fast, but they do not endure. They burn bright, but only because they are made of paper, and every lie ever spoken about you is already trembling before the fire of truth that waits patiently to reveal itself. There is a certain calmness you must hold when you discover that someone has tried to destroy your reputation, not because it does not hurt, because it does, deeply, but because there is a wisdom greater than your offense, a justice older than your pain, a protection that does not sleep. When someone lies about you, they do not realize the depth of trouble they step into. For the universe keeps its own balance, and God keeps his own records, and neither allow deception to stand forever. People think they are getting away with something simply because the ground has not opened beneath their feet. Yet every hidden sin has its appointed hour, and every lie has its appointed downfall. The beauty of truth is that it does not fight loudly, it does not rush, it does not argue. It simply waits, quietly, confidently, unshaken. And while it waits, the liar panics. They start to feel the weight of their own dishonesty pressing against their chest. They start to imagine consequences before they even arrive. They start to fear what will happen when the mask slips. Because masks always slip, the truth they tried to bury begins to rise like something sacred breaking through the soil. You must understand something important. Anyone who lies about you is not attacking you. They are exposing themselves. They are revealing their jealousy, their emptiness, their spiritual poverty. They are announcing to the world that they cannot stand the light you carry. They think their lies place you in danger, but it is they who walk straight into the storm they created. For every false word spoken against a clean heart becomes a seed of suffering planted in the life of the one who spoke it. Sooner or later, they will harvest it. And when that moment comes, when life finally pulls the curtain back and truth steps forward, you will not need to lift a finger. The same mouths that lied about you will tremble. The same hands that pointed at you will shake. The same people who tried to harm you will face the consequences of their deception. Not because you demanded it, but because truth demands it. The universe demands it. God demands it. Stay still. Your innocence is working for you. Your silence is speaking for you. And someone, somewhere, who lied about you is already in trouble far deeper than they ever imagined. There is a strange clarity that enters the heart when you finally realize that false accusations say nothing about you and everything about the one who speaks them. The moment a person chooses to lie about you, they reveal the truth of who they are. Their words, meant to wound you, become a mirror reflecting their own emptiness, their own insecurity, their own fractured spirit. It is almost ironic. While they are busy trying to paint a distorted picture of your character, they are unknowingly exposing the shadows in their own. To lie about someone requires a special kind of poverty, not of money, but of soul. It takes a person who cannot carry their own truth to attempt rewriting yours. When someone spreads false stories about you, They think they are building a weapon strong enough to break you, but what they are really building is an X-ray of their own heart. Every false detail they craft becomes a confession they didn't mean to make. They confess their envy when they attack your strengths. They confess their insecurity when they question your integrity. They confess their inner turmoil when they invent drama to silence your peace. It is always the hollow tree that makes the loudest noise when struck, and the same is true of hollow people. Their lies are loud only because their souls are empty. You see, honesty requires courage to face one's own weaknesses, courage to admit one's own failures, courage to live without manipulating the world. But lying requires none of these virtues. Lying is the refuge of the spiritually small. It is the hiding place of those who fear the light of truth, because it would reveal how little they have built within themselves. When someone lies about you, they announce to the world that they do not possess the inner strength required to stand on their own merit. They rely on destroying another's name because they have failed to elevate their own. There is also something deeply revealing about the kind of lie a person chooses to tell. People project the world within them. A greedy heart imagines greed in others. A manipulative mind assumes everyone is playing a game. A jealous spirit invents stories to justify its own bitterness. So when someone accuses you falsely, they are not actually describing you. They are describing the unseen corners of their own mind. They are telling the world this is who I am, even while pretending to talk about you. And in time, people begin to notice the pattern. They begin to see the inconsistency, the contradiction, the strange mismatch between your character and the stories being told. Eventually, the liar's own words turn into a spotlight, shining directly on their guilt. It is human nature to be shaken when someone lies about you. It feels unjust, painful, humiliating. But look deeper and you will see the quiet justice already unfolding beneath the surface. A false accuser tears down their own reputation every time they attempt to tear down yours. Their credibility weakens, their relationships strain, their mask begins to crack, not because you fought back, but because they expose themselves through the very lies they created. Life has a way of revealing truth without needing your assistance. Time has a way of peeling back layers until the core of a person is visible to everyone. And when that moment comes, the liar often finds that they are standing alone, surrounded by the consequences of their own dishonesty. What you must understand is that your character is not defined by the stories others tell about you. Your character is defined by the way you live, the way you love, the way you stand in truth, even when others weaponize falsehoods. People who know your heart will not be swayed by cheap words. People grounded in truth can sense truth in others. And even those who believe the lies for a time eventually begin to feel an uneasiness, a question, a doubt, because lies cannot produce peace. Lies create tension, and that tension eventually demands resolution. The ones who lie about you are often the ones who feel most threatened by you. Your light exposes their shadows. Your sincerity reveals their pretense. Your strength highlights their weakness. So they try to dim you with falsehoods, hoping no one notices their own fading flame. But light does not lose its power because someone prefers the dark, and truth does not bow to lies simply because lies are loud for a moment. In the end, their accusations are never a reflection of your worth. They are a portrait of their own heart, drawn with shaky hands, painted in jealousy, fear, and insecurity. And though they may not realize it, the world sees the truth long before they are ready to face it. Every lie spoken against you becomes a seed dropped into the soil of the liar's own life, a seed they may not feel in the moment, but one that will eventually sprout into consequences they never anticipated. People imagine that lies evaporate once spoken, that words disappear once the moment passes, The deception dissolves into the air like smoke. Yet every false accusation carries weight, spiritual weight, moral weight, emotional weight, and the one who releases it must eventually carry the burden it creates. A lie may feel light in the tongue, but it grows heavy in the soul, and the heaviness always finds its way back home. An innocent heart feels the sting of falsehood sharply, but the liar carries something far more dangerous, a growing darkness they cannot outrun. When they invent a story about you, they believe they are planting damage in your life, but in reality, they are planting decay in their own. Harm done to a pure heart does not rest quietly in the universe. It demands balance. It demands correction. It demands truth to return with equal force. And long before their lies reach their intended target, the liar has already swallowed the poison they mixed for you. A false accusation is never merely a sentence. It is an intention, a desire to injure, a deliberate bending of reality to cause harm. That intention holds energy, and that energy circles back. The universe has a way of revealing the true author of every wound. God has a way of protecting innocence even when innocence feels most vulnerable. And the laws of life have a way of turning deception into a mirror that the liar cannot avoid. What they tried to build against you becomes the very wall they collide with. Pain enters your life for a moment, but consequences settle into theirs for a season. They must live with the knowledge of what they have done, even if they pretend it does not bother them. Their mind begins to trouble them at night. Their conscience whispers reminders they cannot silence. They find themselves watching their own words, scared that someone might catch them. They grow defensive, uneasy, restless. They begin to fear exposure. And that fear becomes the first harvest of the seeds they planted. Nothing grows faster than guilt hiding behind arrogance. They may act bold, loud, confident, even proud, as if the lie they told has strengthened them. But the truth is that guilt corrodes from the inside. It slowly eats away at peace, at clarity, at the ability to look others in the eye. Someone who lies about you may appear unaffected, but deep down, they know they have built their world on something unstable. They know that truth has a habit of returning unannounced. They know that the day will come when the story they created collapses, and they will be left standing in the rubble. What they intended for you becomes a lesson for them. Not because you asked for revenge, not because you wished them harm, not because you demanded justice, but because lies always lead their creator into the very suffering they intended for others. The universe does not allow a falsehood to rest peacefully. It must unravel. It must expose the one who shaped it. And when that unraveling begins, the liar realizes too late that they were never attacking you. They were unraveling themselves. And what of you? You feel the ache, but you do not carry the curse. You feel the sting, but you do not receive the seed. You may feel wounded, but you are not the one tied to the consequences. Your heart is hurt, but your future is protected. The one who lied about you carries the long-term cost, while you carry only the temporary pain. Pain heals, but consequences linger. Innocence recovers, but guilt clings. A lie may bruise you, but it chains the liar. Seeds of deception never die quietly. They sprout, they spread. They overtake the garden of the one who planted them. Life forces the liar to face the very chaos they tried to send your way. They begin to lose trust from others. Their credibility weakens. Their relationships shake. Their peace dissolves. Their mind becomes restless. And all of this happens long before the truth even reaches the surface in your defense. The universe keeps a perfect balance. What they tried to bury you with becomes the weight that pulls them down. What they tried to take from you becomes the loss they experience. What they try to destroy in your life becomes the ruin they must navigate in their own. And while the lie they created tried to harm your reputation, the consequences they must face will reshape theirs. They planted the seed, they must harvest it. And every harvest resembles the heart of the planter far more than the target of the lie. Truth does not rush to defend itself, nor does it panic when it is challenged. It moves with a kind of ancient dignity, a quiet strength that does not bow to noise or confusion. People often mistake its silence for weakness, believing that if truth is not loud, it must be losing. Yet truth has never been in competition with lies. It simply waits for the right moment to rise, and when it does, it rises with a force that no deception can withstand. Lies climb quickly, but truth stands eternally. Lies may capture attention for a moment, but truth captures reality itself. A lie is like dust thrown into the air, sudden, messy, and irritating, but temporary. It spreads fast because it has no weight. Truth, on the other hand, is like the ground beneath your feet, silent, steady, unmovable. People walk over it without noticing. They take it for granted. They ignore it while chasing the wind. But eventually they realize everything they stand on, everything they depend on, everything that holds them steady is truth itself. And the moment truth decides to speak, everything built on falsehood begins to tremble. Those who lie about you place their trust in the speed of deception. They believe the world will accept the story because it arrived first. They rely on momentum, not substance. Yet momentum fades and substance remains. Truth does not need to be first. It only needs to survive. And it always does. It always outlives the falsehoods spoken against you. Even if the lie seems victorious for a moment, the truth is already working quietly beneath the surface, preparing its return. The most dangerous assumption liars make is this: they think they are smarter than time. They think their story will hold together simply because they want it to. They think people will never question them. They think truth will never catch up. So they speak boldly, confidently, aggressively, imagining themselves protected by the noise they create. But truth needs no noise. It needs no defense. It needs no performance. It only needs time, and time is always on its side. When someone lies about you, the truth begins its journey silently. It gathers evidence, witnesses, moments, patterns. It watches the liar repeat themselves, grow careless, contradict their own claims, reveal their own motives. The truth observes every flaw in their story. It waits until the web they spun becomes too tangled for them to manage. And then, at the moment deception grows tired, truth steps forward with a clarity that cannot be ignored. You may feel helpless while waiting for this moment. You may feel unseen, unheard, or defenseless as the lie travels. You may wonder why truth takes so long, why justice feels delayed, why your heart suffers while the liar appears unharmed. But the delay is not a sign of defeat. It is the preparation for something undeniable. Truth wants the lie to grow just enough so that when it collapses, everyone can see what was built on sand. Truth does not rise quietly. When it comes, it shakes foundations. It exposes not only the lie, but also the liar's intentions, fears, and hidden motives. It reveals patterns that no one noticed before. Suddenly, the false accusations lose their power. The liar's confidence evaporates. Their story begins to crumble under the weight of reality. The people who once believed the lie now see clearly, and the shift is undeniable. Truth has a way of illuminating everything around it. Even things you did not know needed to be revealed. A beautiful thing happens when truth finally emerges. Your name is restored without you having to fight for it. The purity of your character becomes evident. The strength of your integrity shines brighter than it ever did before. You become respected not only for who you are, but for how you endured. Your silence becomes a testimony. Your patience becomes a shield. Your pain becomes a pathway to a stronger version of yourself. Meanwhile, the liar faces a very different reality. The truth they feared catches them with a force they cannot escape. Their story unravels in their hands. Their mask falls off. Their credibility crumbles. Their relationships begin to question them. The same people they tried to impress with lies now look at them with suspicion, and the weight of truth lands exactly where it belongs. Truth does not shout, but it speaks with undeniable authority. It does not hurry, but it arrives precisely when it should. It does not fight, but it wins every battle, and when it rises, nothing, absolutely nothing, can stand against it. Lies may dance in the spotlight for a moment, but truth owns the stage forever. People who lie about you always believe they are the ones in control. They imagine they can shape a false version of reality and force others to accept it. They stand confidently in the moment of their deception, convinced that the shadows they cast will hide their own wrongdoing. What they fail to understand is that lies do not disappear into the air. They orbit, they circle, they gather weight, and eventually they return to the one who released them. The trouble they created for you becomes the trouble they inherit themselves. A person steps into deeper danger the moment they choose dishonesty as their weapon. They think the trouble belongs to you because their lies were aimed at your reputation, your peace, your relationships, your integrity. But the true target of every lie is its creator. A lie is a boomerang. It may travel far, but it always comes back, and when it returns, it strikes harder than when it left. People who lie often don't realize they are crafting the very storm that will one day break over their own life. Lies are unstable structures. They require constant support, constant repetition, constant performance. The liar must remember what they said, who they said it to, how they said it, and why they said it. They must keep track of the layers they've added to cover their tracks. They must watch every word, every expression, every reaction. What seems like a simple act of deception becomes a lifelong burden of maintenance. And sooner or later, that burden becomes too heavy. The cracks begin to show. Their story begins to contradict itself. Their confidence begins to shake. Their panic begins to rise. Trouble enters their life quietly at first. It comes in the form of restlessness, doubt, fear of being discovered. It grows into tension, anxiety, suspicion that someone is watching or that someone has noticed something. They check their words more carefully. They scan conversations. They avoid eye contact. They feel exposed, even when no one is looking. They begin to imagine scenarios where their lie collapses, and those imaginations become a daily torment. The trouble they thought belonged to you has started to consume them from the inside. People often believe that the danger of lying lies in being caught, but the truth is far more profound. The danger of lying is what it does to the liar even before the world discovers the truth. It weakens their spirit. It distorts their perception. It poisons their peace. It darkens their conscience. Even if no one confronts them, they live under a shadow they created themselves. They cannot escape what they built. Their own mind becomes the courtroom in which they are judged every single day. When truth begins to surface, the intensity of their trouble multiplies. They feel it coming long before it arrives. Something in them recognizes that their story is slipping. Someone asks the wrong question. Someone notices an inconsistency. Someone brings up a detail they forgot they lied about. The liar begins to sweat beneath the weight of their own creation. They start overcompensating, trying too hard to appear believable, and the harder they try, the clearer it becomes that something is wrong. Eventually, the trouble they crafted turns into consequences they cannot escape. The relationships they hoped to manipulate begin to crumble. The people they tried to influence pull away. Their credibility weakens. Their carefully planned image fractures. And when truth finally steps forward, they are forced to face a reality far harsher than the lie they once spoke. The collapse of deception is never gentle. It exposes everything, every motive, every insecurity, every hidden intention. You may wonder why someone who lied about you seems fine for a time. But life has its own schedule for justice. When the moment arrives, it arrives with precision. The liar is left standing in the ruins of the story they built, wondering how everything slipped out of their hands. They forget that trouble built on deception always belongs to its builder. You were the target, but they were the trapper of their own downfall. And while they face the consequences of their own actions, something else happens, something powerful, something poetic. The truth about you becomes clearer. The purity of your character becomes undeniable. The strength of your integrity shines brighter. You rise, quietly, steadily, untouched by the darkness thrown at you. Only the short and terrible beam of union. You can see the trouble they intended for you never reached you. It returned to them exactly as truth always intended it to. Silence can feel like a fragile choice when someone lies about you. Everything in you wants to defend yourself, shout the truth, confront the injustice, and force the world to see what really happened. Yet silence has a strength that noise can never imitate. Silence does not mean surrender. Silence does not mean weakness. Silence is often the sanctuary where truth gathers its strength. When you choose not to argue with a lie, you are not giving victory to the liar. You are giving space for a far greater justice to unfold. Holding your tongue in the presence of dishonesty is an act of immense courage. It requires a trust that something bigger than your emotions is at work. It demands faith in the unseen laws that govern this world, those invisible threads that pull truth upward and drag deception down. Silence becomes your shield because it refuses to participate in the chaos the liar is trying to create. When you don't engage with their falsehood, their words hang in the air with no foundation beneath them. Lies only thrive when they are fed with arguments and reactions. Silence starves them. People often underestimate the power of a quiet, steady spirit. A liar wants a reaction. They want you flustered. They want you defensive. They want you to panic so they can point to your distress and claim it as proof of guilt. But when you remain still, truly still, they begin to fear the very calmness you hold. They can't read you. They can't provoke you. They can't pull you into the mess they created. Your silence becomes proof of your innocence because guilt thrashes, but truth rests. There is something sacred about letting God or life itself handle what your voice cannot. When you choose silence, you are choosing not to interrupt the justice already moving toward you. You are choosing not to fight a battle with earthly weapons when spiritual laws are already fighting it for you. Silence invites divine intervention in a way that noise never can. It says, I will not lower myself to match their deceit. I trust that truth will rise without my shouting. And it always does. The universe has a strange loyalty to those who remain honest, even in the face of cruelty. Your silence has an unexpected effect on the liar as well. It unsettles them. They begin to wonder why you are so calm. They wonder what you know that they don't. They wonder why their story isn't provoking the reaction they expected. And in that wondering, fear begins to grow within them. They start to replay their own words in their mind. They worry that someone has already seen through them. They anticipate exposure long before it happens. Your silence becomes a form of indirect accountability. They feel watched, even when no one is looking. Lies require noise to survive. The liar must repeat them, defend them, reinforce them, spread them. Silence, however, reveals the truth by contrast. The more they talk, the more desperate they seem. The more you remain steady, the more authentic you appear. People begin to notice the difference, one voice full of anxiety and exaggeration, the other full of calm and quiet confidence. And quietly, slowly, the balance shifts. Silence does not work quickly, but it works accurately. Your silence is not only a shield against others, it is protection for your own peace. When you refuse to argue with a lie, you prevent the lie from entering your spirit. You keep your dignity intact. You avoid the emotional exhaustion that comes from trying to control how others see you. You learn to rest in the truth of who you are, instead of fighting the shadows others cast. And that rest becomes a spiritual armor that nothing can penetrate. People often assume that speaking loudly is what brings justice, but justice has always favored the patient. Your stillness gives space for truth to reveal itself in ways your words never could. A lie may build quickly, but it also collapses quickly. Truth builds slowly, but once it stands forever. And your silence is the ground on which that truth rises. In the end, your silence is not emptiness. It is strategy, wisdom, and divine partnership. It is the refusal to waste energy on what is already doomed. It is the quiet assurance that what is real does not need your defense. Your silence speaks, and it speaks louder than any falsehood ever could. Lies move with startling speed because nothing weighs them down. They float easily from mouth to mouth, carried by curiosity, ignorance, and the hidden satisfaction some people feel when they hear something negative about another. A lie travels quickly because it costs nothing to repeat it. No thought, no reflection, no moral struggle. But what rises fast also falls fast, for nothing with a weak foundation can stand for long. Lies collapse under the weight of their own emptiness, while truth, quiet, patient, and steady, endures like stone. People who spread falsehoods often mistake speed for strength. They believe that if their lie spreads wide enough, loud enough, and fast enough, it will gain permanence. They forget that what is built in haste rarely survives pressure. A lie may run ahead for a moment, but it cannot hide from the moment when truth catches up. Truth does not chase, it simply arrives. And when it arrives, everything false must bow to its presence. The collapse of a lie is not a soft unraveling. It is a sudden, undeniable exposure that reveals just how fragile deception always was. The weakness of lies becomes visible the moment questions are asked. Lies hate questions because questions require consistency. And consistency is something a lie can never sustain. A single doubt, a single detail, a single contradiction becomes enough to make the entire story tremble. People who lie must constantly adjust their narrative. They must remember what they said, when they said it, and who heard it. They must patch holes each time someone notices something strange. And with every patch, the structure grows weaker. Truth does not need repair. Lies do. Nothing shakes a liar more than the moment they realize their story is slipping. Panic begins to set in. They start speaking faster, pushing harder, trying more desperately to make others believe them, but the harder they push, the more unnatural it appears. Lies always reveal themselves through the anxiety of the one telling them. A person grounded in truth stands calm, even if misunderstood temporarily. A liar, however, carries a tremor in their voice, a tension behind their eyes, a restlessness in their posture. The lie may be loud, but the liar is uneasy. The collapse often begins subtly. A friend hears something that doesn't match. A timeline fails to add up. Someone remembers a detail differently. A witness emerges unexpectedly. Bit by bit, the edges of the lie begin to fray. People who once believed the falsehood begin to question it. Doubt spreads, not because you defended yourself loudly, but because truth has a way of making itself felt. Even those who were initially fooled start noticing the inconsistencies they ignored before. What once looked solid begins to look suspicious. As truth rises, the liar finds themselves standing on unstable ground. They become trapped in their own creation. They try to build new lies to cover old ones, but each new word tightens the noose. Eventually, the entire structure collapses under its own weight. And when it collapses, the exposure is complete. The same speed that carried the lie across people's mouths now carries the truth straight to their awareness. People suddenly see what was hidden. They realize what they overlooked. Their perception shifts sharply, and the liar becomes the spectacle they never expected to be. The collapse of a lie is always a revelation, not just of the falsehood, but of the heart behind it. People begin to see the jealousy, the insecurity, the intention that fueled it. They recognize the darkness in the one who created it. They understand the pain that was attempted against someone innocent, and in that moment, sympathy shifts, respect shifts, loyalty shifts. The liar loses what they worked so hard to manipulate. Lies may spread quickly, but consequences spread even faster when truth arrives. Meanwhile, the one who was lied about rises with a quiet dignity. You did not chase the lie, and the lie could not outrun the truth. Your character stands firm because it was built on reality, not performance. Your integrity survives because it was authentic, not manufactured. And the same people who once believed a false story begin to see your strength in a new light. They see how you remained steady. They see how you didn't fight fire with fire. They see how your silence was not fear but confidence. The collapse of a lie is the victory of truth. It is the universe correcting itself. It is justice unfolding in slow, deliberate motion. Lies may travel far, but truth stands forever. And once it rises, nothing false can stand beside it. When the truth finally steps out from the shadows, it does not simply correct the lie spoken against you. It exposes the soul of the person who created it. The moment of revelation becomes a mirror that reflects everything they tried to hide. People begin to see not only what was false, but why it was spoken in the first place. Motives that were once concealed suddenly become obvious. Their intentions, once whispered in secrecy, begin to echo loudly in the open. Truth has a way of illuminating everything it touches, and once it begins its work, nothing remains hidden for long. A lie may try to shape your reputation, but it cannot rewrite your character. Truth reclaims what was stolen from you and returns it with greater clarity. Those who doubted you begin to understand. Those who judged you too quickly begin to apologize in subtle ways. Through their changed behavior, their softened tone, their cautious approaches, they no longer see you through the fog of deception, but through the clear and undeniable light of who you truly are. And the contrast between the truth of your life and the darkness of the lie becomes too sharp to ignore. The person who lied about you undergoes a very different experience. While truth elevates your integrity, it strips theirs bare. Their motives stand exposed like wounds that never healed. People begin to see the envy behind their actions, the insecurity behind their aggression, the emptiness behind their impulse to tear you down. What once appeared as confidence reveals itself as fear. What once seemed like righteousness reveals itself as manipulation. Truth does not expose gently, it exposes completely. The world has a quiet wisdom when it comes to discerning authenticity. People may be fooled for a moment, but not forever. There comes a point where their intuition begins to tug at them, where small inconsistencies start to matter, where subtle contradictions begin to disturb them. They realize that your calmness was not indifference, it was strength. They realize that the liar's loudness was not conviction, it was desperation, and once they see it, they cannot unsee it. One of the most powerful moments in this unveiling is when the liar realizes the shift. They feel it before anyone says it out loud. They notice people no longer listen to them the same way. They sense the hesitation in conversations. They recognize the quiet looks exchanged in the room. They feel the weight of suspicion pressing against their chest. They understand, often too late, that their story is falling apart in front of the very audience they hope to influence. Truth does not simply clear your name, it erodes theirs. The exposure of their motives forces them into a confrontation with themselves, whether they want it or not. They see how their jealousy shaped their actions. They face the darkness they tried to disguise. They are confronted with the reality that their attempt to harm you has instead revealed something broken within them. Your innocence becomes a spotlight that reveals their insecurity. Your strength reveals their weakness. Your truth reveals their deceit. And this revelation is often more painful than any consequence the world could impose on them. Meanwhile, you experience a kind of restoration that is quiet but profound. Truth does not just vindicate, it deepens the respect people have for you. They admire your patience, your dignity, your refusal to descend into bitterness. They see how you held on to your peace while someone else tried to steal it. They recognize the maturity required to stand still while falsehood swirled around you. And in a world that often admires noise, your silence becomes a mark of character that people do not forget. The beauty of truth is that it does not need help to reveal itself. It does not need an argument, a confrontation, or a performance. It rises at the right time, in the right way, with a clarity that no one can deny. When that moment arrives, you do not have to say a word. Minds change on their own. Hearts understand on their own. The story rewrites itself without your intervention, and the exposure becomes both a cleansing and a lesson, for them, for you, and for everyone who witnessed the unfolding. What they tried to hide becomes visible. What you tried to endure becomes honored. What they tried to twist becomes straightened. Truth restores what lies attempted to break, and in doing so it reveals every hidden motive that brought the lie into existence. That is the quiet, unwavering justice built into the fabric of life itself. Harming a pure heart is never a small act, even if the world does not notice it immediately. When someone lies about you with the intention to wound, manipulate, or destroy, they step into a kind of spiritual danger they cannot comprehend. The universe keeps careful balance, and what is done in cruelty always returns with multiplied force. The downfall of those who lied about you is not caused by your anger or your desire for revenge. It is caused by the natural law that governs every hidden intention. They built their life on deception for a moment, but deception eventually demands payment from the one who used it. A pure heart is not defined by perfection. It is defined by sincerity, integrity, and a refusal to harm others even when wounded. People who carry such purity are often misunderstood. Their gentleness is mistaken for weakness. Their silence is mistaken for surrender. Their patience is mistaken for absence. But purity has its own kind of strength, a strength that is rooted in something deeper than human logic. When someone attacks that purity, they are not just harming a person, they are violating a principle woven into the fabric of creation itself. Lies told against an innocent soul act like stones thrown upward. They rise for a moment, suspended in false triumph, but gravity always brings them back down, straight onto the hands that threw them. This return is not a matter of vengeance. It is a matter of inevitability. Life does not allow cruelty to prosper indefinitely. The pain they tried to give you becomes a lesson they must learn themselves. The dishonor they attempted to place on your name settles instead on their own, and the suffering they wished upon you becomes the shadow that follows them. The most striking part of this process is how predictable it becomes once you understand it. The one who lied begins to feel the consequences long before the world sees them. Their peace erodes, their confidence weakens, their relationships fracture, because lies never stay contained. One lie always demands another. Their conscience troubles them even if they pretend to feel nothing. And eventually, their life begins to unravel in ways they never anticipated. Not because you wish them harm, but because each person must eventually face the harvest of their own actions. A pure-hearted person does not need to curse anyone. Their only responsibility is to stay aligned with truth, to hold on to dignity, and to remain grounded in who they are. The rest unfolds naturally. The downfall of the liar becomes a message written by life itself. No one escapes the consequences of harming someone who lived honestly. And when the liar begins to pay for what they did, their suffering becomes a reflection of the very harm they tried to inflict. The poetic justice of this is undeniable. The same mouth that tried to stain your name becomes silent in embarrassment. The same hands that pointed at you become busy trying to hold together the pieces of their collapsing story. The same people who believed the lie begin to question the liar. And suddenly, the one who once stood confidently against you finds themselves standing alone. Their intentions are exposed, their motives are clear, their downfall becomes visible, and the world finally understands what your heart always knew. Lies can rise, but they cannot reign. This kind of justice does not require your participation. You do not need to argue. You do not need to defend yourself loudly. You do not need to prove anything. Life itself handles the unveiling. God handles the balancing. Truth handles the revealing, and innocence handles the rising. The pain you endured becomes part of your strength, but the consequences they endure become part of their regret. And regret is often the heaviest punishment. The liar begins to see the cost of every false word they spoke. They realize how many people they hurt in the process, not just you, but themselves, their reputation, their relationships, their own peace. They learn that harming someone who meant no harm is a direct offense against their own future. The downfall they experience becomes the greatest testimony that every cruel intention finds its way home. You rise, not because the world suddenly decides to believe you, but because your truth was always stronger than their lie. They fall, not because you wished it, but because no one escapes the weight of their own actions. The universe does not forget. God does not overlook. And purity, even when wounded, is always defended in the end. Their downfall becomes the final proof that you were never the one in danger. They were. The storm they created around your name was never strong enough to break you. It only revealed the firmness of the foundation you were standing on. Every false word spoken against you became part of a journey that shaped your strength, sharpened your discernment, and deepened your relationship with truth. You walked through the shadows they tried to cast, but you did not become their darkness. You remained who you are, steady, sincere, unshaken, and life honored that in ways deception never could. The people who lied about you believed they were writing your story, never realizing they were writing their own downfall. They thought their words had the power to define you, but those same words only exposed them. Truth took its time, but it did not fail you. Justice moved quietly, but it did not abandon you. And now you stand with a clarity they never expected you to have, a peace they could not disturb, and a strength that was born from surviving what was meant to destroy you. You are not the victim of their lie, you are the survivor of it. And survival has a way of turning pain into wisdom, wounds into discernment, silence into eloquence. The storm has passed, the truth has risen, and the weight that never belonged to you has finally lifted. Let the past remain where it unfolded. Let the truth continue to speak for you. Let your character remain your greatest evidence. The ones who harmed you face the consequences of their choices, and you do not need to witness every part of their journey. Your responsibility now is not to look back at what they did, but to walk forward into the life that still waits for you, untouched, uncorrupted, and full of purpose. You learned who you are in the fire they set. You learned who they are in the ashes of their own collapse. And now, having seen the truth stand and the lies fall, you can move forward with a heart that knows its own strength. You are protected. You were seen. You were lifted. And the one who tried to break you stands as the greatest proof that nothing spoken against a pure heart can ever bury it. Walk on. The story has already ended exactly the way truth intended it to.